Well, good evening, everybody. It's Chris here from the Whistle Stop Cafe in Mirror, Alberta. And I am in Mirror, Alberta. I'm in my house that I just moved into. I moved out of my other house, and I don't have my Starlink internet set up yet. I'm tethered to my phone. So if I'm choppy and appear to be a little bit overweight and aging, it's because of the internet connection and nothing to do with reality. So tonight, we have a very special and awesome episode of the Chris and Kerry Show. I've wanted to have my friends Chris Barber and Tamara on the show for quite some time, but as you may or may not know, because I mean, you could be living under a rock or something, the courts actually said that they weren't allowed to talk to each other or have any contact whatsoever because, you know, they're so dangerous and all. Anyway, that was that condition was lifted last week, and now they're able to be with us and talk about some things that have been on my mind, might be on your mind, and are probably on their minds too, because if there's one thing I've learned over the last few years, it is that I'm not alone. And if I'm feeling something, there's probably a lot of other people feeling the same way, especially when it comes to our thoughts and opinions on current events. So without any further ado, I would like to bring on my other friend, Mr. Kerry Lambert, also known as Terry and Kelly. Hello, Kelly, Terry, Kerry.
Get every name under the book. How are you, Chris?
I'm doing well, and how are you?
Good. You're a little pixelated, but you know what? Everything seems to be going good. So you know what? Before we get everybody going, oh, Chris has now moved into a mansion and he's grifting and he's doing all this sort of stuff. Do you want to maybe just for 15 seconds explain what happened with the house?
Because I lost my house.
Yes.
So there's that. Yes. I moved into. So when I bought the Whistle Stop, I had two houses. My primary home, which is the first house I ever bought. My son grew up there, like he was born when we lived in that house. My kids grew up there. I had to leverage that house to the point where I ended up just selling it to the person that I was leveraged to, so that if something happened with me and the government annihilated me, then he would not lose anything. So that house, I don't own it anymore. And I also had this small little rental house that I bought back in 2016, I guess it was, because it has a big shop. There's a 30 by 50 shop. The house is 100 years old. There's some nice asbestos in it and those types of things that come with 100-year-old houses. But I love it. Anyway, I bought it for the shop, and my old boiler business paid for the shop so that I could do my work, my oil field work there. That all kind of went, and I was stuck with the two and ended up selling this one as well. So now we're renting and trying to figure out how in the world I could ever own another home after the last few years.
Yeah. So, and I just wanted to point out that is the reality that seems to be happening with everybody that kind of stuck their necks out. And you know, we're going to have Tamara and Chris Barber on right away, and we'll talk a little bit more about what they've sacrificed. But I just wanted to acknowledge to everybody that Chris has sacrificed a lot, and it's worn him down so much that he's actually 22 years old. I don't know if you know that. So, yeah. But it's really drawn on his face, and
yeah, you can tell. I appear very aged, but in reality, I'm actually very young.
Yeah. So. But yeah, I don't mean to dwell on that, but it's something that I think that people need to realize, so that you know, maybe we can get some help and spread the word about what's actually been going on, because it has not gone unaffected. Even myself, owning my jukebox and arcade games company, and we weren't allowed to do games, or you couldn't touch anything. Remember that whole series? It was
that was fun. Yeah, I remember that.
November 27th, I think, of 2020. It was the Christmas that didn't happen all the way through to June 15th. Couldn't play pool, couldn't touch anything. But at the same time, they shut down the VLTs, but they just happened to come up with the new Play Alberta site, so you could still play VLTs and do gambling online from the comforts of your own home. So, and that all happened right at the beginning of the convoy. So without any further ado, let's welcome these two
amazing... Kerry.
Oh.
Okay. Without any further ado, we are going to say Happy Mother's Day
Oh, yes. Happy Mother's
mothers
Day.
out there
If
who
you're a
put up
mother-
with boys like us.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm not even sure, should I say people that identify as a mother? Or is that too controversial?
No, sorry, not happening. There's a Father's Day
It's
for
the
them.
mothers. If you have actually done it through the birth canal thing, then you were a mother, and happy Mother's Day. Chris, did you have a beer going over?
Happy Mother's Day. I actually do, because
There you go.
I am aging so fastly.
Is that
I
Perrier?
have a different type of beer.
What is that?
Cheers.
Cheers. There you go.
Perrier.
All right, let's get these people.
Okay,
on
we
there.
better get the show on the road because it's Mother's Day, and I think one of our guests is a mother and a grandmother.
Yes, and that would be Chris.
Who knew?
What?
Good evening. Good evening.
There
you
we
two.
go.
Oh, so
Hi.
How are you? Awesome. Everybody's
I'm great.
happy.
I'm
Excellent.
tired.
Great.
Wait. Are there? Oh, I can hear it. There's people that are living under a rock. They're actually phoning right now to try and get you arrested for being together. This is hilarious.
I bet they are.
Here.
Virtually,
Happens all the
guys.
time.
Well, thank you very much.
You guys,
Yeah.
you guys couldn't be even online virtually together, could you?
No.
We couldn't even follow each other on social media.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
That is.
And it just by chance, the minute the restrictions were lifted, my son's truck was in Medicine Hat in a truck repair shop. And I said, Jonathan, let's go get your truck. And then I had them drop me off at a restaurant. And Tamara and I spent the better part of the day just sitting in a restaurant.
Catching
and it was
up.
funny watching everybody come into the restaurant and go, yeah, I know you.
It was funny.
That's awesome.
And actually having a conversation that wasn't filtered.
It was awesome.
Yes.
Really good.
Yeah. Not that we don't love our
congratulations.
lawyers. We love our lawyers. I mean,
Well,
they were the
yeah.
best babysitters and photo bombers in the whole world, but it's nice
But
to have the
expensive.
freedom. That expensive, yeah. Also, the most expensive babysitters and photo bombers of all time.
That is true. That is true. I think we'll get to that in a minute, but so let's just. I mean, there's so much we could talk about, and we can start kind of what happened with this last week because I think that's really pertinent. But then I want to take you back to before any of us even knew each other, and talk a little bit about how you got into the whole thing because I know you've probably told the story 1,000 times. But it would be nice to have one condensed version. Now that you've told it, I find when I tell a story 1,000 times, it goes from being a 10-minute ramble down to a 30-second little clip. And so maybe you guys are good at doing that. So what actually happened within this last week? Because again, you guys were in court, and all we knew is that you guys couldn't talk to each other. That was the way the restrictions,
Bail conditions.
bail conditions were for you.
So it was my lawyers that took advantage on this one. Tamara's lawyers have been pretty prominent throughout the whole case. So my lawyer was the one that, and I kind of instructed her. I said, the Crown is rested, the prosecution is rested, and the defense is rested, and we're waiting on final submissions.
Yeah.
Last November, we had a fundraiser for Burn Buchert up in Fort St. John, BC, and I mentioned to the lawyers, I said, I have conditions against Danny Bulford. Danny Bulford lives in the Grand Prairie area. He's going to be at this fundraiser. Can we have the conditions removed? And the Crown prosecutor said, absolutely. And they, stamp and away you go. Danny and I could see each other. And we asked the Crown, he said, now that prosecution's done, can we have our conditions lifted? And they said, no. And so then it was like, okay, let's let the judge decide on this one then, please. And she ruled on Wednesday morning at 7:15 our time. There's no reason why we can't have contact. So yay.
That's amazing. So the courts and actually said, hey, you can have your freedom of association back again. You can do that. You can be free. You can have your freedoms until we take them away again.
Right.
Yeah. Cool.
As long as we behave.
As long as you behave. I know you're going to behave like to stay out of jail. I totally get it. But Kerry, I'm going to throw a wrench in the gears. So I want to talk about some stuff tonight. We'll continue on with this in a second, but I want to talk about some stuff tonight that nobody has talked about yet, and nothing to do really with court or any of that stuff because that news is going to be old really quick. I'm sure the whole world is abuzz right now, but there are some other things that I'm going to throw in there. So you want to continue a little bit more on about how the court stuff went and what's going on with that? I know it's probably seeming like a broken record now, eh?
We go with the flow.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's next in the court world?
Tamara?
Next, we go back to court. Our trial resumes August the 13th. We've got 3 days that week for sure. They're trying to secure the next week. As far as I know, it's not secured yet, but they're really working on it so that we can get submissions and closing arguments done and finally get this thing wrapped up.
Mm-hmm. And
So
how does it look?
more waiting.
More,
I guess.
hurry up and wait.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
If this moved any slower, we'd be going backwards.
I told somebody the other day, it's like, do you remember Night Court, the sitcom back in the day?
Yeah.
It's almost like Night Court, like an episode. We're laughing in court, we're having fun. It's it's quite surreal.
And I think any court case seems to have been surreal. I know even with Chris's, and I've gone to many court cases, and it really is nothing like you would expect that court should be. Like, it's not LA law or anything like that. It seems to be people that really just don't have a clue as to what they're doing as lawyers and prosecutors, and it's just so bizarre. So if any of our viewers have not been to court lately, just go sit in a courtroom and just see what shenanigans are happening, because it's striking. And again, I've been to more court in the last couple of years than I think I certainly than I have in my entire life, and I've been a pretty good guy. So it's just ridiculous on what we actually see out there.
Well, it's the first time
Well, then I would say that we're exceptionally lucky then, because all the lawyers that we've dealt with have been absolutely phenomenal, starting right from, Keith and Eva getting on the ground in Ottawa to Lawrence Greenspan and my team, and Diane Magus and her team for Chris have just been outstanding. There's some really long days in court, but once those guys get up and start doing their thing, it's something to behold.
Well, that's good.
That was my question for Tamara. How did it feel for you to be sitting there and listening to other people talk about you? Like, one is advocating for you and the other one is trying to squash you. How's that feel?
Mm-hmm. I really wouldn't know how to describe it. I mean, it's a situation I never thought I'd ever be in or have zero experience with, It is difficult to sit there and listen to the Crown prosecutor say, mean things about us, but, it is what it is. He's doing his job, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
So
when he's such a nice guy in the hallway, like he comes up to us every morning and is, "Good morning, Mr. Barber. How are you?" He's a nice guy. I think he's a nice guy. I'm glad it's him who's doing it, to be honest with you.
Isn't that weird? Like, I was for me, it felt like an out-of-body experience, like listening to these people talk about me. And I'm like, I'm right here. Like, I'm literally right here and you're talking about me. And by the way, you're full of crap, because that's not true. I don't know if you guys know this, but I was just cross-examined by the Alberta government regarding my affidavit to support the filing of a claim against the government on behalf of all businesses in Alberta. And I'm sitting there being questioned by them. And I'm like, okay, so I understand that you're trying to make me appear like a opportunistic profiteer who got rich because the government broke the law, and the questions were so I didn't like them. I didn't enjoy it. It's like, hey, you might have benefited in one way or another, so maybe it's okay that the government broke the law. Well, it doesn't work like that, right? But then at the end, the guy's like, off the record, well, actually, we're still on the record, but I'll just say, having to go through your Facebook page and looking at all your food and your restaurant, I can't wait to eat there. And I'm like, you're trying to destroy me. Like, you want to come eat at my restaurant? Have to feed you. But,
this is our government, ladies and gentlemen.
It is hard to deal with. Chris is so good, though. I mean, Chris can be friends with anyone. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So he's super friendly. I tend to come from your point of view, Chris, where I think this guy's trying to put me in jail for 10 years, so I don't say good morning and smile at him anymore.
Oh, yeah.
I don't blame you.
Tamara's a little more hard-ass than I remember in Ottawa. I like this kind of Tamara. She's like, if you cut her wrong, you're gone. Like, there's no more coming back. And
I was going to say, being in jail will probably do that to somebody.
Yeah, right?
Yes.
And
yeah.
a mother.
Well, and it's been 2 years of growing some pretty thick skin,
Oh, It's daily. We
So
got somebody coming after us now, isn't it? It seems like it's daily. I don't know. It seems like it's a new fight every day on Twitter
yeah,
or TikTok or
my tolerance
Speaking of
for BS has gone like.
I would imagine.
yeah.
speaking of that, Chris, you watching your early social media. Now I got to say this first. Before I got involved with any of this stuff, I checked you out big time. I went through your TikToks. I went through your Facebook stuff. I wanted to know who you were. And some of your stuff I found honestly a little bit distasteful, not my style. But I got to say, I am extremely proud to watch how you've changed throughout this. Like I watch how you interact with people now, and it's like you're a whole different person. And I think if there's any silver lining to this stuff, is that both of you, and I've seen this, I'm sure a lot of our viewers have seen this, have grown tremendously, and you guys have this world view and this appreciation for people that you can only have when you go through these things, right? So I want to say kudos to you for using this opportunity to grow. Now, here's my question for you, Chris. There's been a lot of people who have attacked you quite viciously on Facebook or X or whatever, and I watch you smack them down like bugs, and I honestly get a kick out of it. But here's the thing: there's some people. It's like they'll believe anything that people tell them. Somebody made up a story that I got paid millions of dollars by the UCP to promote them, and I'm getting rich from Alberta Prosperity Project and all these things. And my friends that actually supported me, came to my restaurant, had supper with me, shared hugs, turned on me. Like they believe it just because somebody says it. And people say things about you, other people believe it, and then all of a sudden they start attacking you. And I know that you're not the man that they should be attacking. I have friends back on Vancouver Island, and they were messaging me through this whole thing, like, what's with this Chris Barber guy? He's on this side and doing this and in controlled opposition. I'm like, no, he's not. I've spent time with this guy. He's the real deal. So, what do you think about that, and how are we supposed to deal with it? With the people using this to try and get attention for themselves by hammering you down?
Well, there's a lot of clout chasing out there, I found, and that's the sad part, I guess. I've grown a lot in the last couple of years. I'm still the immature ass on social media that I once was too. I'm a little bit more, I'm more muffled now. I kind of think things through. I don't attack anybody unless they attack myself or somebody that I care about. Like for the last couple of years, it's been hard watching Tamara be relentlessly attacked on social media. And I've kind of been the one to come in and go, hey, fire your shots at me, and then they leave Keith and Eva and Tamara alone, and they focus their attention on me, and I can handle it. I've got thick skin, but you'll watch me every now and then take a step back from it, and I'll kind of disappear from posting for a little while, and that's usually my way of saying I've had enough, just need a break from it. And I tell you, sitting in the courtroom for the last however many months, watching yourself on social media use foul language, I really would love to apologize to the judge for my potty mouth and some of my old videos. I've refined that. I think through Convoy, I realized that I have an audience of more than just truck drivers watching me. So then I've kind of found different ways to use my words. I don't go after people unless they come after me. That is my rule of thumb. I hardly ever go after somebody unless they've attacked me or Tamara or somebody else that I care for. So.
Yeah.
How about you, Tamara?
I just try to stay away from it. I mean, I go on social media and I'll see lots of terrible comments sometimes, and I just don't engage. That Chris has got that market cornered, I think, and I just, some of these people are just looking for a platform. If I acknowledge them, then that's giving them attention and feeding it. And the way I look at it is, if you were there, or if you know me, or Chris, then you know the truth. And if you don't, and you're that gullible or easy to convince otherwise, then, go on and do your, I don't really care anymore,
Mm-hmm. No.
That was leading
we've got bigger things to focus on. And that's where my head is at. My head is not in all the little dramas and everything that's happening out there. And no offense to Chris, of course, he does a great job trolling these people, but I mean, we have a country to save, and there's, like Chris used to always say, eye on the prize, and I'm not going to give them my time and my energy when it's better spent elsewhere.
Yeah.
So that was
I
all
don't-
leading up to this. I think that almost all of the attacks that you two receive are from people who are acting out of ignorance. And if I think of the past 5-6 years, I would have to admit that I've been ignorant of a lot of things going on in the world around me, especially in politics, social issues, that type of thing. And it wasn't until it affected me that I got involved and started paying attention.
Yep.
And then it dawned on me that the reason that we're in this situation in the first place is because of ignorance. And it's not a right wing or left wing thing. It's not a member of the small fringe minority or not a member of the small fringe minority. I've realized that if we don't pay attention to the natural world and people around us and things like that, there's people who will probably never know, who understand how human beings interact. And they're actually, I think they're causing both the right and the left, both the awake and the woke, to fight amongst each other because they're ignorant of reality. And when you guys are out there, you're speaking about things. Tamara, you're all over the place doing events and book signings and talking to thousands of people. Chris, same thing. You're on the road all the time. I really believe that those conversations where we can get some of this truth out to people about how we're being made to fight, maybe that might turn the tide a little bit. At least I hope it does.
Just look at how the government's primarily responsible for this, but it's been responsible for this for so many decades. You got, the government's divided us in, East versus West, our skin color, everything. And then they found a way through COVID to divide us within our own household, for crying out loud. And we let them.
That's right.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep. Families every day, every single day this week. And I would say at least 3 or 4 times a week, someone comes into the Whistle Stop Cafe and they shake my hand. They say, thank you for doing what you did. Thank you for standing up. Lots of people ask about chemtrails, but that's another story. And then they tell me,
right?
I'm glad I could, I'm glad I could come here because my family has disowned me. And I hear that so much. Families just completely ripped apart. And then now people that we would have never met, who we've met, have all of a sudden become our new extended families throughout this, right? Like Chris, I was talking to one of your cousin today. And
Diane.
she was saying, I really want to talk to Chris because my family is just, I can't even talk to them. And we don't talk anymore. And I hear this all the time. Is that something that we can get past? Like, how do you guys think we can deal with those types of things? Because if the government can cause families to rip apart over things like this, I think that's a really scary situation.
Mm-hmm.
It's still happening. I mean, I don't think you can find a family out there that hasn't. I was at a Hutterite colony in Alberta yesterday, and that was probably one of the only places where it was like the health inspectors came to the colony and they basically said, get out of here. Like, we don't want you here. Well, you need to wear your mask. And he says, you don't wear a mask when you go home to your wife and kids, right? And then the health inspector said, no, I don't at home. And he says, well, this is our home and this is our community. So leave. And they did, and they got away with it. But that's, the Hutterite colonies were one of the ones exceptions that the government didn't get into and destroy. And maybe they did. Some colonies probably different, but it's sad and it's scary.
Yeah. Well, can I jump back to? Okay, go ahead, Tamara. Yeah.
Well, we have a very big hill to climb here, and my perspective is that we need to keep talking about this. We need to create awareness about it, because let's face it, I believe we were traumatized. We were purposefully traumatized throughout the pandemic, and until we acknowledge that as a community and a country, we need to move forward and heal now, And you're right, Chris, that's one of the best things that's happened out of all of this is that people that I didn't know 2 years and 3 months ago and had never met, never talked to, are closer to me now than some people I've known my whole life.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate. I hate to see any families torn apart, especially over stuff that happened like that. But the silver lining is that we have a new family now too.
It's a very human experience, both for the better and for the worse. So sorry to interrupt you, Kerry. Go ahead.
all I was going to say is that I'd like to at least go back to early 2020 before. Well, actually, let's go early 2022 before the convoy. Of course, we were shut down with restrictions and blah blah blah, and you guys came up with the idea of the convoy. But before you even did that, the thing that I want to really iterate to people is, because I get this all the time, is that you've had a platform forever. You've been able to talk and your public speaking and all that. No, like this really has happened to all of us since the convoy, right? Because I could imagine how many people were in your close circle of friends, how many people you would interact with on a weekly basis, never mind a monthly basis, was probably pretty small. And if you look back to what has happened since then, like it's a completely different set of circumstances. We're like brand new people. We've come out of our cocoon, wings spread, and we're trying to at least wake people up as to what the issues were. So I guess my question to both Tamara and Chris are, if you can think back to that point now, or back to then, back to 2022, and the changes that have happened with you. Number one, what really drew you into being part of this movement? I guess, like what circumstance was, because we all have that certain story. And number two, would you give yourself any advice at that point? Because I would certainly give some advice to myself.
Yeah, me too.
Now, so.
Man, I don't know. Like the January 15th mandates for cross-border travel was my straw that broke the camel's back when Justin Trudeau implemented that, and I'll always go back to that. I followed the COVID restrictions. I wore my mask in the restaurants. I didn't want to be the guy that got that restaurant owner a $14,000 ticket in Saskatchewan for not wearing a mask. So I respected the rules because of that, not wanting to be the guy that had got a business in trouble. And I trucked throughout the pandemic. So I spent those days in the truck. I remember like 2 weeks into the pandemic, I came home and I said to my wife, I'm like, I can't do this anymore. Like, this is ridiculous. You can't use a public bathroom. You can't. The great outdoors was basically what it was. You're standing in drive-through lineups with passenger cars trying to get a coffee at Tim Hortons.
That's right. Exactly.
Like, how humiliating
for your health. So.
Yeah. But if you go to Walmart, you can go buy a Keurig and stand next to 40 other people without any issues. It was just, I'll go back to January 15th. That was it. Like, and then those mandates were coming in, and I took the jab at the end of 2021, thinking, I've done a good job to fend away those big carriers from my customer base for the last number of years, and the government is basically going to hand them over to the big carriers now because they're forcing all their drivers to get vaccinated. And so I did it myself. At the time being, I had one other employee, Jay, and he wanted to go ride his motorcycle in Arizona in the winter times. He didn't cross the border with the truck anyway at that time. So it was like, he went and got the thing too. So we did what we did because the government made us do it, and it was for our livelihoods. And here we are. The idea for Convoy was born at the beginning of January 2022, and I don't know if I give myself any advice. I mean, people ask me if I regret anything, and I honestly, I don't think I do.
Mm-hmm.
You say that the government made you or put you in a position where you had to do that. And I think it's really sad that we're supposed to be able to trust people. We're supposed to be able to trust authority and trust doctors and trust pharmacists. What do they call it? Pharmacists.
Pharmaceuticals. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think Chris might be locked up.
And I say it because that's accessible. Am I back?
Christopher, you were locked up there for a second.
Am I back now?
Yeah, now you are. Yeah.
Yes.
Am I now?
Yes.
Anyway, it's sad that we can't trust those people. It's all complete BS that happened. And fortunately, it's becoming mainstream. I don't know if you heard about this, but there's something called an injection of truth happening in Calgary. Basically, one of the CAs down there, Lougheed, right? Yeah. They got together a bunch of doctors who've been very vocal. Most of them we've had on our show, Kerry, and they're going to bring them to Calgary. They're inviting the UCP MLAs, the AHS board of directors, and they're basically saying, you need to stop this crap because it's hurting people. And at the very least, we should find out why there's 251% more sudden unexplained deaths in children, right? So it is becoming mainstream and progress is being made, but it's very slow and people are dying while it's happening. So yeah.
We want
Anyways.
accountability, do we not? We know we want government to acknowledge that they overstepped, and they want them to recognize that, and then we move past it. But until government can do that, I mean, we're going to be in a big. It's a standoff now. Saskatchewan, as much as I'm a Sask Party supporter, Scott Moe doubled down last week on whether the impact or his COVID restrictions were worth it, and he said yes. So
really,
I'm not going to lie.
But they have to say that. They all have to say that. Because if they don't, then they're admitting that they made a mistake. And I'm not a note. Sorry. Yeah. I'm very tired. I've just got home from Toronto about 2 hours ago. Yeah. I've yet to hear any of these politicians apologize for anything, least of all Justin Trudeau, and he's made more mistakes than anyone. Right. Well, I don't even know if there would be mistakes. I think a lot of it's been on purpose, but...
So Tamara, it's kind of the same question.
Real work.
Where for you, Tamara, like at the beginning of 2022, what got you involved, and would you give yourself any advice from that, which you've gone through?
I would say, well, I've never been one to abide a bully. And that's what I felt was happening. And I've never been somebody that can stand by and watch people suffer. Mm-hmm. And I was already involved, a little bit politically with the Maverick Party, and we were, at Western Independence organization. So when I had the opportunity to do something and help, and I mean, of course, I was going to do anything. I was trying to do everything that I knew how to do. I don't have a law degree. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. But I getting involved in something for me was better than anything, or nothing. Would I give myself any? I don't know if I would. I mean, that's what made it so beautiful, is that it was so organic, and we just all went there with the tools that we had and the skill sets that we had, and made the most of them. And hindsight is 2020, but that's one of the things that made it so sincere and so grassroots. Is you could be a doctor, but maybe we needed somebody to shovel the streets that day, and so that's what happened. It was brilliant. I would have maybe. I don't know. I would have maybe been a little more confident. I mean, that was the second time I've ever been to Ottawa, and the first time was when I was 5 years old. So, going in there and dealing with that was sometimes a little bit intimidating, because we just didn't know what to expect, But other than that, I mean, I think we did the very best we could in the circumstances that we had, and I'm proud of it. I'm proud of us. I'm proud of Canada.
Yeah. Well, we're proud of you.
Well, I think you all did a fantastic job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, you were there too, buddy.
And it really was, like you said, it was organic, because I remember going out there. Chris gave me the call on, I don't know what, the Saturday or the Sunday, and said, we're heading out on Monday.
There's Friday.
Plan whatsoever. Well, yeah, Friday. Okay. So yeah, no plan whatsoever. Chris had a court date or something Monday morning, so we
probation meeting.
Yeah, that's right, probation back in there, and so we actually couldn't catch up to the convoy until we actually made it to Balgony, I guess is where we caught up to everybody. Minus 35 and no place to sleep. So we slept in the front of the cab. Some people were more uncomfortable than others, sitting in the front seat. And it really was. The plan was just to get out there, not really sure what we were going to do. And then once we were out there, everybody just kind of said, okay, you know what, we're here. We better find a task to do. So Chris ended up doing his news stuff and reporting. I immediately got into doing the group with the social media. As you well know, Facebook and everything else was being shut down. They would put up a Convoy 2022 site and boom, it was gone. Yep. So I was in this committee trying to come up with ideas on how to circumvent that. Maybe we do a different app somewhere else, but Facebook had such a large following at that point. And at that point, all I was doing was I was stuck in a hotel room for two days, just banging away on the keyboard, and I had no fun doing that whatsoever. So I said, I'm going to get involved somewhere else. So I ended up going out to the stage, and I think that's actually where I met you guys. Probably the first time was at the stage when you guys came out there. I know Chris was up on the stage as well, and it was such a surreal experience seeing how it was just a flatbed truck, and then a couple of speakers were thrown in there, and then different equipment was brought in, and people just like, what do you need? What do you need? And I have yet to experience that again. I mean, there's lots of times we'll do an event and people are like, what can I bring? You know, can I bring a lasagna? Right. But that's about the extent. There, it was like, you name it. You want food, you want resources, you want gas, you want jerry cans full of water. Like, what do you need? We will get it to you. And to me, that was such a, that's the thing that I will definitely, it's an emotional thing even talking about it now, but if you weren't there, it's hard to describe exactly how it was to talk to people that you had nothing in common with except that they were there for everybody dealing with the convoy, and they were ready to do that. And what an amazing experience, and it really is difficult to put into words.
It was a true Canadian unity. We put the unity back in community.
Absolutely was. You know, and driving out there, and you guys could probably run into the same thing. Driving out there and stopping in these little towns, and people are out cheering you, and they're coming to talk to you. Chris and I actually ran into a couple of people that, and this didn't happen until we were driving back. But we ran into people that were, when we were driving back, again, driving back, you're all by yourself. When you're going out there, you were with hundreds of vehicles. Driving back, you are a lone wolf, right? You drive back, and people would see the picker truck, and they would immediately jump to us and say, you have no idea what impact you guys had on us. I was ready to kill myself. Yeah. But one in particular said, I was ready to kill myself. And then because I had no friends, I had no family, I was totally alone. I really thought I was alone. I thought there's got to be something wrong with me. And I just didn't want to continue with my life. And then they saw the convoy, and she met up with us. And I'm not going to tell her name. It doesn't matter. But she is a friend, and I see her quite often now, and especially at court dates. And it's just one of those things that, so we changed lives. We changed Canadians' lives, no matter how big or how small. And I think that is something that people will never be able to take away from us. No matter how much you say, you guys are grifters, you guys are slime, you guys should have gone to jail, it doesn't matter. I will know that we did something right. That we helped that one individual or thousands of individuals go through that particular time when everything was shut down, and they thought that they were absolutely nuts, and they were distanced from their family and friends. Yeah, am I locked up?
No, you're good. I think he must be locked up again.
Yeah, that's all right. So, but yeah,
Chris and I heard that every day, every stop, like multiple times a day. People would come up to us, at least 3 or 4 people every day, every stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
I still get that. I just got a message from somebody the other day on Facebook, just said out of the blue. It was a message request, and I was desperate. I was ready to take my life. I've got a letter in my curio set over here, and she puts it in specific words. I felt like the government had taken everything from me, and the only thing I had control of left was how I take my life. And I was trying to decide how I can take my life, what method. And then the trucks fired up, and she didn't. And my gosh, I mean, I'm going to frame that. It's sitting in my curio right now, but doesn't get much more real than that.
What was it that made that different than what people are trying to recreate now?
I don't know. I have those conversations with a lot of people, you know, hey, we're going to do another convoy. And I'm like, you're not going to recreate it. I appreciate your commitment and what you want to accomplish, but you know, the convoy is over. I don't know if we're ever going to be able to recreate something like that, but now is the time to get involved in your local community or your government. And like, there's other ways to move forward, but you know, I went out and supported the boys on the side of the highway, the people on the side of the highway out at Cochrane the other day. And it was awesome standing out there visiting with everybody. And I appreciate everything they're doing. And you're getting a lot of people driving by. You're raising awareness. That's exactly what needs to take place. But there's another aspect of it too, where we need to get involved politically, whether you want to get involved in your local school board or your government or your RM, your rural municipalities, get involved with politics somewhere, because it's not going to change unless we're changing it from within.
That's right. And Chris, you probably only realized that
agree.
after everything you've gone through, because if you were like anything like us, apathy is just like ridiculous in Canada. It's like, oh, go and vote every 4 years, and that's all I needed to do. And now we realize that's not the way the system is working. We know
our trial right now. We know our trial is like the puppet strings from above. It's politically based, and it's being pulled. The strings are being pulled from maybe the PMO's office or the Ontario Attorney General or somebody. But it's political. That's all it is. And if it was a change from within, that wouldn't be happening.
I think Pat King is in court right now.
He starts tomorrow or Tuesday. I don't remember.
I thought it was the 17th, but yeah, he's there. Maybe I thought it was the 17th, but I'm obviously wrong.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, this is not over. There's a lot of people that are still being dragged through court just for standing up for themselves and for other people.
We've had some wins. We've had a lot of wins in the last while, but we've also had some losses. Jay Vandenweer, of course, was found guilty. Marco and everybody was found guilty. Like, we need to get some appeals for these people. Tamara and I are going out to Ontario in the beginning of June to do a fundraiser for Jay Vandenweer. We'll try and get him through the appeal process so he's financially secure with the lawyers to go forward. That should be the priority right now, is getting some of these people. You got Shaba that's coming up in trial, Harold Jonkers. There's a number of people that are still working their way through the court system. You got to stand behind those people.
I think we're going to end up needing some pardons, because if you recall, actually, you'll probably remember this, Chris and Tamara. Do you remember when Rick Strankman decided, him and his 3 other friends decided he was going to sell his wheat to whoever the hell he wanted because it was his wheat?
Wheat board.
And he went up against the Canadian government and the wheat board, and they put those men in jail.
Yep, that's
Stephen
right.
Harper, because they did the thing. They actually did that crime. And it wasn't until a government changed and the leadership changed that was all of a sudden, that was justified, and they were given pardons by Stephen Harper. I think that's what is going to be the remedy for a lot of these guys like Marco and Alex and George. Like, they did the thing, right? The thing happened, and they've always said that we did that. But here's why. So it's going to take a government that respects that people stood up for themselves in whatever way they could, and says, okay, we're going to pardon you of these things, because they have criminal charges now. That's absolutely ludicrous. And that's why they didn't. Yeah, that's why they didn't charge them under the Civil Infrastructure Act. They charged them with mischief because it's criminal code. And that was just dirty, dirty pool, if you ask me.
It's all lawfare. It's all lawfare.
Tamara and I are bouncing off of $750,000 in legal fees right now, and thank God there's people out there helping us, like the Democracy Fund and the JCCF, as well as their own fundraising. I can't tell you the amount. I added it up the other day. The amount of money it's cost to drive back and forth to Ottawa and take part. We have to rent an apartment. We've got our meals and our transportation and all that sort of stuff. It's a hell of a lot of money it's cost just to go back and forth. We've been there 4 times. We got a 5th time that we're going to have to be there. So we're going to be, incurring another big whack of change here in August.
Just imagine how much the taxpayer is actually paying too on the other side. We don't hear about that, do we?
Well, this is the irony of our situation.
Yeah.
We're all forced to go out and, fundraise and try and raise money to fund ourselves against people who are using taxpayer money to try and put us in jail. They have unlimited resources.
Absolutely have unlimited.
Yeah, unlimited. So I don't know about Chris, but I know I don't have $500,000, so I would be between a rock and a hard place right now if it wasn't for the Democracy Fund.
Didn't we co-op the convoy and take off with not even millions, it's billions?
Millions.
Yeah, I hear that all the time.
Fighting for your rights is extremely expensive because you're fighting an enemy that has an unlimited pocketbook. It's the government, and it's because it's your pocketbook. Like, they're literally using your tax dollars, Chris. And I know, trucking company, you pay a boatload of carbon tax, a boatload of federal and provincial tax. They're using that money against you, and that's why people don't stand up. I realized very early on that it was completely ludicrous for me to even bother trying to stand up against the government because
It's expensive. Yeah.
I'm
You
freezing
don't
so
win.
much I'm
That's
cutting
the
holes
thing.
in my shirt.
Well,
Yeah.
and then eventually
I'm not
the
meant to win.
downside is that anybody that is funding is, you know, longtime supporters, and that funding is eventually going to go dry, right? And so even when we're involved with the Alberta Prosperity Project, we try to at least get other people involved and see whether or not maybe they're a little bit like-minded, maybe they're, you know, they hate the government, so maybe get involved that way, right? So there's a lot of things that we try and do to stretch out that group of people, and that's tough to do, even in this case, because the people that are being longtime supporters with the convoy are still longtime supporters, but it's tough to get new supporters because they've already moved on. They're doing something else,
Yeah.
and so that's why, you know, what we're doing politically, anyways, is trying to get people involved, volunteering. You know, if people can't afford cash, then at least volunteer and get involved with something, and then spread that word, and maybe you can entice other people to get involved, and maybe those people will have the ability to make donations in order to help fund this stuff, because you're right, this is not cheap, and it's not going away anytime soon.
And that's the key.
And you have to understand, they're going to, with the exception of one case that I know of so far, and Chris can correct me if I'm wrong, every acquittal that's happening to Freedom Convoy participants is getting appealed immediately. And I don't think for a second that if we're found not guilty, I don't think for a second he'll appeal it immediately. Just
Hell,
like
even the
we'll
lawyers.
appeal it if we are found guilty. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so
Even the
we're
lawyers
just
said that.
getting started. Yeah, that's
Lawyers
right.
said that a while ago. They said just be prepared for a long relationship with your lawyers because we're going to be here for the next few years. So we just know that. If it wasn't for my son right now running the trucking company, we've got a bunch of trucks running around the provinces here, hauling equipment. I would be in a financially different situation, corporate wise. You know, like we're busy. We have a good business. My son is going to be, you know, he looks after it quite well. He is now an owner, and I'm thankful for that. I don't know what I would do without him, but personally, the savings accounts are empty. We already know that. So
here comes the solution part. The convoy was, you know, it was a real good shot at a solution, and it solved a problem in that they dropped restrictions all over Canada, but nothing changed because they could still do it. So what I would say is that people like you guys stuck your necks out, and now you're going to be in court for like the rest of your lives unless there's a political change. So if we're not advocating for political change to fix things while people are fighting that fight, it is a losing battle. We seriously need to change some laws in this province and in this country. And if we don't, this is all going to be for nothing. We'll get pummeled, every one of us.
Well, we need to get back to having politicians in office that have some integrity and some respect for their people and that care about their people. You know, look what's happening with the Coots boys. It's unconscionable. It's unconscionable what is happening here, and it's like Chris said, it's very clearly political. When our trial started on September the 5th, and between September the 5th and the middle of November, the Ontario Provincial Court dropped 125 cases. And some of those cases were violent sexual offenses. And they threw them out. They threw them out so that they could prosecute our mischief case.
Wow.
Huh. That's ethical.
I didn't know that.
Isn't that crazy?
Well, it's not surprising because the worst crime you can commit is speaking against the government. Crimes we commit against each other are nothing compared to if you go against the government. Always. Always.
Well, clearly. I mean, you see the protests that are happening all over Canada, well, North America right now. But, you know, it really struck me when the Newfoundland fishermen went on strike there, or went to protest a few, I don't know, what was that, 2 months ago maybe?
Yeah.
And, you know, we're talking about 50 fishermen, and there was a wall of police in front of them.
and they brought
so
the
that's
horses in.
they brought the horses, that's right. So, you know, but they were protesting policies of their government. just like we were, and look at how we get treated compared to how other protests are being handled.
I don't know about you, but I don't believe that police should be able to use horses to traffic people, because they end up trampling people every single time. And I can't believe, as a civil society that we are right now, we're allowing law enforcement to come in there with Clydesdales or whatever they may be, and that's a safety concern. You can't, in the trucking industry, you can't shit on the side of the highway without having to worry about getting written up for it. And then the law enforcement's using 1,500-pound
horses.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Well, you have to do that so you can blame it on the horses.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
So there's a fella in the comments.
Once they take your guns away, they won't need the horses anymore.
Right.
There you go. Yeah. There's a fellow in the comments talking about how there's no political solution. And I will argue this until I am blue in the face. This country, less than 3% of people are members in a political party. We're the most politically apathetic people on the planet because we've never experienced tyranny like this in this country. There is a political solution. There's two paths. The first path is using democracy and the political system that we have that isn't perfect, but it's what we have and it's peaceful. Or the other option is a full-blown revolution where people die. Now, you tell me, is it worth it to throw a peaceful solution away that nobody's really participated in just because a few people say, oh, it won't work? It doesn't work because we don't work it. Tamara, you said that we need politicians.
All good over there, Chris?
That was my antenna.
Cat?
We need politicians with integrity. We need people with integrity. We need people who are in the feed.
Yeah.
Anyway, am I back?
I've had a lot of people ask if I'm going to run for politics, and I can confirm that I will not be running for politics. I make a better critic, I think, and mock politicians than I do actually being one. So that's where I stand on that.
Yeah. Well, that's good to know. I mean, so I was going to say there's actually a third solution, and the government already knows that this is a third solution, and that's to get the hell out of Dodge and go move to Mexico or Costa Rica. And I think it was even last week where they actually said they're going to maybe implement a departure tax for decide to leave. Like, they may as well just keep taxing it for whatever reason, right? Oh, like if you're going to leave, it's going to cost you $40,000 this year. And if you're going to leave next year, it's going to be like $100,000 because we're in power and we're able to do that. Like, how do we stop this stuff? Like,
am I back?
We get involved.
Yes, you're back, Chris.
Okay.
But the issue is how do we actually do that? We need good politicians. We need tons and tons of vocal voices out there just to say, no, we're not standing for this anymore. We need to change it.
We need organizations to educate people as to what the solutions are and why they need to be involved. That's what we need.
That's what I was just going to say. This is one of the reasons why I love, I don't know if you guys ever watched the Northern Perspective stream. They have a stream on YouTube. And this is one of the reasons why I love what they're doing, because they're taking even things like committee, all the question period and all that stuff, and they're breaking it down and giving it to their audience in an interesting and easy to understand manner. Because the problem with politics, for me, for many, many years, was that I didn't want to know about it. Because if you started talking about it, it made my eyes glaze over. Mm-hmm. In social studies, when we learned about it in Canadian politics in school, it was like, it was it was the most boring thing I had to suffer
I think they made it boring on purpose.
They did. That's exactly why they did it.
It should be exciting.
So we need people, like you guys have your stream, Northern Perspective has their stream, all these, people that have these amazing platforms to start educating people and getting them more involved and interested in politics. Because that is our number one problem. Like Chris said, it's the apathy, and conservative voters are the worst. I'm sorry. They are the laziest in most elections that I know of. They just don't want to get, and in the West, I think, I wouldn't say rightfully so, but understandably so, because I know the last election, as soon as I saw the numbers coming from Atlantic Canada in the middle of the afternoon or early evening, I knew it was done. So at that point, then you're like, well, why am I going to, finish my dinner early and go vote when it's, So, but it has to start with the Canadian people. They need to become engaged and they need to become informed. And you don't have to focus on everything. It can be overwhelming. Just pick one thing to look at. And I guarantee you, if every Canadian turned on Question Period and watched it just one time in its entirety, they would be so fed up. They would be
It's
getting
ridiculous.
it's like
I always
terrible.
think back to the Wayne and Schuster episode where they're doing the question period. Question time. It's such a mockery of itself.
It is. It is. Would
all
you
a bunch
not
of
rather
actors.
turn on your TV during Question Period in the House of Commons and see both sides of the House sitting at a table and talking about finding solutions together instead of this melodramatic bullshit, pardon my language, that we have to watch? I mean, there's more maturity in a kindergarten class.
You know what? We did see them work together though a few years back. They were all pushing the same narrative, and
Yes.
they actually made their friends richer by like $275 billion.
They sure
They
did.
worked together for that.
Yeah.
So they can work together.
And so that's my concern with the Conservative Party. I mean, I don't get me wrong. I like Pierre Poilievre. He's articulate. He's clearly very intelligent. He can
And the
make
man
those
can eat an
guys
apple.
on the other side. He can eat an apple, and he can just he can just eviscerate them in there, and they don't have anything. But my concern is, and I just said this the other night to someone, during the time of the pandemic, there was no official opposition. And when the convoy started, we became the official opposition.
That's right. That's
and
true.
where were they? There was nobody advocating for the other side of the story. Not one party.
Yeah, I agree. And you know what else? Not one prime minister in the history of this country, even ones from the West, I'll use Stephen Harper as an example, has changed anything for the West, which actually is another conversation I want to have with you, Tamara, at another time, because I know you were involved with, with Wexit early on, and now you have a new perspective on Confederation Canada. So that's a whole nother thing, but we'll do that another day. Before I continue, I do need to recognize in the comments, I see there is a very special mother watching right now. Betty Carbert is watching, the Chris Carbert's mother. Her son
Hi,
is
Betty.
still in
Happy
jail.
Happy Mother's Day, Betty.
Yeah, happy Mother's Day, Betty. Thank you for watching. And we really hope and pray that you have your son with you again. He's been in jail for like 800 and some odd days.
Yeah.
And it's just going on and on and on. So again, a reminder, folks, there are people who are not free of this yet. And they don't even have their freedoms. He's in remand. And
He's in remand. It's remand is
purgatory.
Well, remand is so bad. If we get sentenced to jail, I hope it's more than 2 years, because I would prefer a penitentiary. I'll tell you that.
Wow.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
Going back to politics here for a minute, guys, there's been organizations running around the provinces right now for the last number of years or months trying to promote different ideas and solutions for the way government's run right now. I threw my father in the car here a couple months ago. We drove to Leader, Saskatchewan for a little town hall with Unified Grassroots. Nadine Ness was there speaking and giving solutions about how becoming involved with your local party inside your pay for the membership and then become part of the voters. You're the one that controls your local MP or your member of parliament for your provincial side. Anyway, and they gave really, really valid solutions. Just go out and get a membership and then control from within, kind of like what happened to the UPC party in Alberta and take back Alberta. That's doable, and we can do that in each province. We can do that federally as well. We just have to learn the tools. They've figured it out.
That's right.
Yeah. We have to stop being ignorant of politics, because we might not be interested in politics, but politics sure as hell is interested in you and every single aspect of your life, right down to the length of your lawn. And I know that because I got a ticket from bylaw because my lawn was more than 4 inches long.
I just got the lawnmower out of the shed today.
Yeah. But with politics too, like Chris and I actually, it's kind of funny. We actually, we're part of the UCP. We're part of the Independence Party, Wild Rose. And just recently, like within the last month, Chris and I both signed up for the NDP.
Oh, it hurts to hear you say it.
How it irks me every time I get an email from them. But it's good to know how much email to go out, right? Especially during this leadership contest.
And who are you going to vote for, Nenshi or Hoffman?
Oh, I'm
Gil McGowan.
Oh, Gil McGowan, number one.
Oh, great.
Oh, yeah.
Great.
Yeah, my name is Chris from the Chris and Kerry Show, and I endorse Gil McGowan for leadership of the Alberta NDP. Gil McGowan working for you, making sure the NDP can't win the next provincial election, and we continue with the conservative government. Gil McGowan.
The more you know.
I was paid for by the Alberta NDP.
But that's true, because that's the only way you can get involved is to actually be part of the parties, and that was one of the things I wanted to see, because I was told so many times, if you're involved in any other party, you can't be involved in the NDP, and it's like, well, you know what? I'll throw away my $10 because that's all it costs, just to see if this is going to happen. There was no question. They didn't do any vetting. They probably were happy about my $10. As a matter of fact, they were so happy that they're now sending me, like I said, 2 or 3 emails a day at least. And
with a bunch of lies.
I should go upstairs and go. I'm going to go get the lawn sign that they sent to me.
You got a lawn sign?
Wow! You're
is Janet still in the hunt? Who's all running her? Is Janet still in the hunt?
No.
No, she's out now.
Yeah.
Oh, what happened there? I thought she was a shoe-in.
No. Thank goodness.
Who is that?
The one
Janice
from Edmonton.
Irwin.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
I went to the
like
legislature last year, and the behavior that I saw when the camera was not on these. Oh my goodness!
I was sitting on my lawn the other day.
I didn't get that.
Hands off our CPP. Never mind talking about the APP or the.
Kerry, paint the C teal or blue.
I'm gonna make an A right there.
Hands off our.
And then I would change the QR code. I might as well come up with a brand new sign.
Well, you can just make it say "hands off our PP."
Well, I didn't want to see it there.
That's right.
There you go.
Oh wow,
man! But you got to get involved. Otherwise, why would you? How would you know that was happening? You'll be driving down the street one day and there'll be a sign there, and it's kind of like, oh well, don't know how it got there, but whatever. Now I know how it gets there. If you're a part of the NDP and you acknowledge, I'll sign up for blah, 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 blah. They'll send you a sign. No questions asked. I'm definitely writing a post about that, because that is.
I'm going to put this up, Kerry. This is a great comment. This is something I talk about all the time when I'm talking. Do any of you honestly believe politicians matter when the bureaucrats remain the same? You know what? That is a very, very good point.
Excellent point.
The only way we're going to be able to deal with the bloated and all-powerful bureaucracy is if we create a parade that the politicians want to get in front of, and we support them, and we support them when they start draining the swamp. If we start attacking good people for things like the 5% that we don't agree with when they're trying to do good things, we're never going to make any changes, because I can tell you right now, I had a conversation with somebody very close to the Premier's office, because I was really disgusted with some of the things I've seen from AHS and the government promoting the jab and now the kids and stuff like that. And they said, you know what? We're trying, but there's like 2,000 bureaucrats in that arena, and maybe 5 of them are conservatives and they're on our side. The rest of them, they want us out and they want the NDP in. So while we see our politicians fighting these little battles in the forefront, there's stuff going behind the scenes with the bureaucracy that we'll never see. So if we don't somehow support them to do these things, it'll never change. So that's an excellent point, and thank you.
Very good point. Yeah.
He's going to lose his mind here for a minute. It'll get better. I don't know if you can hear him or not.
Oh, yeah. We got a visitor?
He's a doorbell. Somebody just came home. I don't know who it is. I'm in the basement. He'll calm down when he gets his little tail wagging in.
Yeah. So next steps, moving towards prosperity. What do you think? What do you think, Chris? Man,
we need to fix the current administration first before anything can change in this country. like I've always said too, like it's the 40% of the people that just want to be left alone. When they finally realize that their bottom dollar is being cut into really harsh right now, they're going to get involved. And when they get involved, then you're going to see change happen really fast. So I think that's the first step that has to take part. I mean, it's evident that the Liberals are running us into the ground. If Stephen Guilbeault isn't destroying it with his environmental impact, I spoke with somebody the other day in the banking industry, and they said, the new stuff coming down right now through the federal banking industry, the regulations when it comes to if your carbon footprint, your green identity isn't where the government wants it to, you don't get funding. You won't get a loan. You won't get anything. That's part of the new social credit score that's coming in. And when it happens, screwed.
Yeah. If only we could do something about the banking, but wait a minute, that's federal.
Yeah.
It seems all paths lead to Alberta independence. What do you think, Tamara? Some action items. What can people do tonight or tomorrow and the next week?
Well, I hate to beat a dead horse because everybody says this and it's starting to sound cliche, but that people have to get involved and they just have to pay attention and just find one thing that you can put a little bit of time and energy into and get it done, and write your MPs. People say that all the time too, but really write them, send them, like Eva Chipiuk said, don't just send them an email because they never read those anyways, usually. So write a letter, type a letter, call the office, book an appointment. That they have to listen to us in greater numbers, and that's what it's going to take. But we got to keep the pressure on.
Gotta keep the pressure on. MLAs are free as well, so.
And if you can't,
I was just saying the postage when you send stuff out as a letter, postage to MPs and MLAs are free. So.
That's nice.
Right. That's right.
Well, it'll be paid for anyway, with tax dollars.
Taxes, yeah.
If you can't do those things, like you might not be able to get out and do active things. But I'm gonna tell you a little story. Chris and Tamara, do you remember a fellow by the name of Brian Peckford?
Oh yeah, a little bit. Yeah, met him occasionally.
Yeah. So
sounds familiar.
Yeah. So I became aware of Mr. Peckford, the Honorable Brian Peckford's blog. Early on, I drove out to Parksville to meet with him and talk about what was going on. And it was awesome. The coffee shop was noisy. The background noise was terrible. So I had to do an interview with him later. But he basically said, the government and the courts, they're really screwing up. They're not going by the spirit of the Constitution, what it was supposed to be. And he knows because he's a signatory to it. Right. What I'm getting at is I'm talking about if you might not be able to do these things, but you can help. So when we were in Ottawa, I had already talked to Brian Peckford a few times. We'd emailed back and forth. And I thought, you know what? Brian needs to come out here and talk to people and explain what's going on. So I made a phone call to a friend of mine who was unable to do things like Convoy or get involved like that because he was old, retired, didn't have much energy. He was fighting cancer again, but he really wanted to make a difference and get this country back to the way it was when he immigrated here in the 70s. Mm-hmm. So I said, can you help get Brian Peckford out here? Because remember, at the time, you couldn't travel unless you're vaccinated, right? You couldn't fly unless you're vaccinated. Brian Peckford isn't. So what this fella did is he cut a check for a private plane to fly Brian Peckford and pick up some more people in Calgary to bring them out to Ottawa. And nobody knows that. This was a friend of mine that we arranged to do that. And maybe you're not wealthy and can do things like that, but you can support the people who are doing the work. Yeah. We got Brian Peckford out there to support the people on the ground doing the work, and he did a fantastic job.
Yes,
right.
Sure
all of these things help.
Yeah,
all of
them. Great. Yeah, so many stories about what was actually happening behind the scenes in Ottawa and the different hotels and how some hotels were a little more open to us being there than others, and just the whole. The way the government, the city government there in Ottawa were just slamming us, and yet they were saying, we had to shut down Spark Street because these protesters came in. We had to shut down Rideau Center because they came in. Well, they were shut down anyways. Rideau, yeah, technically was shut down on the Saturday, but Spark Street was closed like for months before that.
And I would like to make a point about this because, we've heard, we hear constantly stories about, oh, it was so terrifying and scary and we couldn't leave our apartment and we were so scared and traumatized. And for a long time, that used to really irritate me because I thought, well, how could you be? Like, if you stepped outside, it was the biggest love fest I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, I agree.
But then I came to the conclusion that these people really were scared and they were terrorized, but they were terrorized by their own local politicians.
Yep.
Right? And their
media.
local media. So, I have a bit more sympathy or patience for them now than I did before because a lot of them watched that stuff and they believed we were coming with pitchforks and torches.
Guillotines,
But
Tamara. Guillotines. I heard
guillotine,
that.
yes, that's
We
right.
had- we had
We took a
guillotines.
homemade guillotine out there, I guess.
What?
I don't know
We
where
just whipped one up on our way. We just whipped one up on our way to Ottawa,
Wow.
Stopped at the guillotine store and stopped at the used guillotine store and picked up a guillotine.
Tex and
Where
Edna
do people
Boyle's
come up with this
guillotines
stuff?
are us. Yeah, exactly.
Microaggression.
That's right. Yes.
Man,
Huh.
I don't know.
I missed that.
I did too, and I walked the streets a lot. I remember the day we were like literally moving trucks around up on the Wellington there, and I got the phone call that, hey, Mr. Peckford's in a hotel room up in whatever hotel it was, and he'd like to meet you. And I don't remember how many blocks I was away from that hotel, but it was a long ways. It was minus 20 or 30. I hooped her. It was pretty cool.
Yeah. He's a great man.
Amazing. Him and Carol, absolutely amazing people.
And they're really upset about watching what's happening. Like it's he's just beside himself when he talks about these things.
I know. Well, he should be.
No.
That's his charter.
Yeah.
It is.
It's getting completely disrespected and trampled on, and that's
Well, we
It's a
can change
national
it.
treasure.
We can change
And this
that
is
because
another thing, he even said it in the documentary, the Unacceptable documentary, that the public schools should be inviting him to come and speak. Universities and colleges. He should be reaching as many people while we're still so fortunate to have him here. And not one of them is phoning him.
You know why? Because schools and retirement homes and all that, it's almost like they quarantine themselves off from what's actually going on. So I ran as an MLA in Chestermere and Strathmore in May of last year, not to win because I knew I wouldn't, but specifically to get into those places.
you couldn't have won. I was your campaign manager.
Yeah, well, you were too busy flipping burgers, so that wouldn't have happened. But it was amazing trying to get into the schools and even trying to just do a debate. They had organized a debate with myself and a couple of other independence-minded groups, UCP and the NDP. And about 3 or 4 days before that was supposed to happen, they canceled. So they knew that, you know what, if we can just silence everybody, then that's the best thing that's going. And that's exactly what's happening in the schools. The schools are, and maybe it's not the actual teachers, maybe the teachers themselves are going, it would be great to have Brian Peckford in here. But as soon as it hits the administration or the superintendent or whatever level it is, they're saying, no, we don't need that crap in there. Instead, wave your rainbow flag and everyone will be happy.
Mm-hmm.
It is. I know a lot of teachers throughout the province that feel the same way that we feel, and it's the boards above them that administrate what goes on. It's in Swift Current, Saskatchewan here, when kids, what was it, last year, the kids signed a straight pride flag and hung it up on the hallway beside the rainbow flag that other people did, and the police were called, and the police officer came to the school and said, this is considered a hate crime.
Wow.
That's our school board right now. That's
scary.
our school.
Yeah.
So how do we fix that?
Become involved with your local school boards. Control from within. That's exactly where it should be.
We have let activists become our voices for decades.
Yes.
It's the people who were affected, the people who were, in the LGBTQ community that were whatever abused or discriminated against. They got involved because it affected them, and then it went way too far. It's gone beyond we're all equal and we're going to accept each other and be compassionate towards each other, to you must think like me or otherwise you're a bigot, right?
Yeah.
So if that's how we got in this situation, then logically, if we get involved and we use our own voices, we can turn that tide, we can change that. And I don't know if it's still going on, but I think that was an initiative that Take Back Alberta was supposed to be taking on this year, was to start taking over school boards and bring some common sense back.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Then we can do things like put civics in the curriculum.
Yeah. School board and municipal politics, for sure. Yeah.
People get involved because not a lot of people want that job, and so you get the people that shouldn't have those jobs, take those positions. And that's, like in where I live, Sturt Valley, Saskatchewan, we lost our school almost 2 years ago. And when the local school board took over the insurance funding on that school, they said, we're not building that one again. And we had insurance back there. The community had built the basically like the gymnasium. The community came together years ago and built that and fundraised to have that built. And the school board in our local division said, no, we're not going to do that. And it's been 2 years of fighting, and we actually had to get very vocal against it in order to get our school rebuilt. We lost our grain elevators years ago. We've lost our restaurants. Now we lost our school. The community is going to be basically dead unless that school is built again. Now we're busing our kids, a half hour to a different division or different places. It's a fight. It's nonstop.
Well, it's better to centralize schooling and put them in bigger classes, right? So they
put
can
them
have
into a
education or something.
Everyone should move to a city and not drive cars. I think that's the ideal situation to be in.
Electric.
Yeah. It's sarcasm, people. It's sarcasm. All we do on this show is sarcasm anyways.
Yeah. Never.
I have a question, though.
Yes.
Does Phil Primo just have anything else to do in a day other than comment on every video that's out there? Hi, Phil. You're my hero.
Here's the thing with Phil. So Phil and I, we butted heads a lot over the last 2 years, to the point where we had some Facebook interactions where I just said, you know what, you got to get some help, buddy. What I didn't realize, here's the thing. What I didn't realize is that Phil has lost a lot over the last couple of years. He's really angry at what the government's done. He's lost family members, his best friend, to the mandates and stuff like that. And he wants things to change big time. I did a show with him a little while ago, and I was hesitant to do it because we'd had such negative interactions. But what I've realized is Phil has some really good points. He really does. He's really intelligent, but he's also really mad at what's going on. And doesn't have much of a filter. So a lot of the stuff he says comes across as, well, I mean, it's Phil. Sometimes you cross the line a little bit, buddy. But I'm not going to block Phil because he has got good things to say as well. And I just have to remind people that when I said, you know what, you need to get help, he probably did need some help because he had been through so much trauma. So there's a lot of times where we see these interactions, they're very impersonal on our comments or whatever, and we're quick to jump down each other's throats about stuff. But remember, we're all human beings. Phil is somebody's son. He's somebody's brother. He's somebody's uncle, maybe. I don't know. And we all have our stories. And just because we may not come across the right way and we might piss someone off with the way we say something, it doesn't mean that we don't want solutions as well. And I can say that even though Phil uses foul language and says some nasty things sometimes, he does want things to improve and he does want accountability. So
you just got to be careful about the messages you're giving and how you give it and how people will perceive it. And I figure that's where he goes off the rails a little bit too often there. So there's a different way to do it. If you come across really aggressive, you lose people. If you come across it a way where you can meet somebody in the middle, you're more likely to gain a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
That's true, but we all have. I have as well. I did a real sarcastic chemtrail video, thinking that, it made sense to me, but I didn't put myself in other people's shoes, and it really pissed them off. And it is what it is. But none of us are professionals.
Oh hell!
Not one of us here have any training in any of this stuff. We're winging it. This is like as raw as you can get. So we're going to make mistakes, and that's.
I still use my Twitter as I don't think I post anything on Twitter other than just I have fun with the left when they come out. Well, not even the left really. Some people, I use it as a troll. I just do. I love my TikTok. I've got one account that I use for, decent, politically correct videos, and then I leave one open for the left to come in and try and hate on me, and I make fun of them in return all the time, and it's
I like
exactly
that
what. Yeah, I kind of enjoy that one too.
It's very entertaining. So I'm just going to point out that what Phil is talking about right now in the comments is political solutions. He's saying we need political solutions. And there are other people in the comments saying there is no political solutions. We need to do something different. Well, I don't agree. There is a political solution.
Absolutely.
And if you're saying that you're advocating for the alternative to that, I am not on board with that at all. And that's what Phil's saying right now.
Yeah.
So
we have to get involved. That's the basic consensus, is getting involved. And doing another convoy to Ottawa is not the way to fix anything right now. Getting locally involved with local governments and your community is the way to do it.
Yeah.
It's time to get to work.
We should have been working for years before this.
Yeah.
Otherwise, who knows? The whole world may have changed if we were at least involved for, let's say, the last 10 years. But now we have no choice. We have to get involved now.
Look at what happened when it touched us, though. When it hit us in the part where we had to stand up, look at how things changed for us. And there's more people out there that it'll eventually get to that point too, right?
Yeah. Ask yourself if 10 years ago, if someone said to you, you know what, Chris, if you don't get involved, Tamara, if you don't get involved right now, you're going to be eating crickets in 2025.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You would never believe it. Yet here
if
we
somebody
are.
told me in January of 2022 that we would be, I would spend my first time in the back of a police car or with handcuffs on or that cold little jail cell in the Ottawa, or, and then in and out of the courts the last couple of years, I don't know if I would have believed things would happen. I mean, it's been a hell of a ride, hey?
Mm-hmm.
It sure has. And you know what? I wouldn't, if I could change everything and make none of these things happen, sure. But apart from that, I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't change what I did. Maybe I would change how I interacted with some people, but I wouldn't change a thing.
I think
change a few of our inner circle, right, Tamara? Like our inner circle within Convoy. I think I'd be a little bit more skeptical of them. Maybe try and.
Okay, that's my piece of advice for myself. I would have initiated a solid, strong, thorough vetting process.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, that would have been a good one. That would have been a good one.
You know what's funny about that, Tamara? As you say that, I'm kind of thinking about how over the last few years, I've never been at the forefront of these things, but I've always been there, and I've talked to all of these people. I've met all these people. I've had conversations with them that are, the ones that are against you and Chris. I know a lot of them, kind of like a fly on the wall. So when I see these things happening, I have a different perspective than a lot of people, and it's a really weird position to be in.
Mm-hmm.
But it's certainly interesting.
Yes.
I remember making that call there, Chris, back in the day when we were kind of planning things out, and I'm like, there's one guy that needs to be here, and it's Chris Scott. Look at the stuff that he sacrificed and what he's done. This is exactly the reason why we're going to Ottawa. And I remember making that call to you and trying to convince you to, and you did, thankfully.
I saw your TikTok video.
He was like a celebrity, right? He was an Alberta celebrity back then. So when I got to meet Chris,
driving through Winnipeg, whistle stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad I went. It was the people on the overpasses.
You guys, I don't want to cut out on you guys, but my daughters are here, and I've got one leaving for Manitoba for the summer tomorrow.
Are you leaving tomorrow? You're not.
No. My daughter's moving out there for the summer
okay.
to go to work. Yes. So are you guys okay to carry on with Chris?
Well, you know what? I kind of want to wrap up anyway, Tamara, because it's 8:30. It's Mother's Day, and I do have a wonderful mother in my life that's here with me and raising kids with me. So I should probably spend some time with her too. So maybe this is a good time to wrap up.
I'm not trying to cut your show short by any means.
So you guys are still cruising around. You're doing some. I know Tamara's at Angels Cafe tomorrow. I'll probably be there in Calgary as well.
Oh, good. Great.
And Mr. Barber, where are you? You're working. I mean, you're still driving around. So anything that's planned for you in the next little bit?
Yeah, it's going to be a busy summer. I can tell you that. Tamara and I will be doing a public event here for the JCCF in Medicine Hat on the 23rd of May.
Yeah.
We have a little bit of a break. Yeah, trucking is insane right now. We're just out of the spring rush for farming communities, so it's going to be maintenance week this week. We're doing wheel alignments on trucks and changing tires. We're going to be heading out to Victoria, BC for the We Unify conference in the end of June, I believe. What is that, the 17th of June, somewhere?
Tell me more about that, Chris.
Yeah, I think it's the 20.
Yeah.
I think it's the 21st, 22nd, 23rd.
Yeah.
So here's a bombshell. So Tamara, Chris, and I will be speaking at the We Unify conference in Victoria in June. So please be there. This is going to be amazing. This, if we can pull this off, this is going to be the biggest national conservative event in the country. And that's what we're shooting for. Check it out at weunify.ca. There's a massive lineup of awesome speakers, including the two on the screen with me. Dr. Peter McCullough will be there. Dr. Byron Bridle will be there. Lauren Southern is going to be there. I don't know if you remember Lauren from her media days here in Canada, but it's going to be a great time. And if you can make it, definitely go. Kerry and I are going to start doing some promotion for that right away, although Kerry doesn't know anything about it, but he does now.
Yeah, the 21st to the 23rd.
I'm always last to know things.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a good lineup. There's a lot of good people there.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
So I think we got the event coming up on June 2nd. Tamara's got a couple events. I'm going to go take part in the Jay Vandenweer fundraiser on the 2nd of June. Tamara's got one on the June 1st, right?
We're going to go help raise money for Dan Hartman. We've got 3 events booked on the 29th of May, the 3rd in Newmarket, the 31st in Mississauga, and then the 1st is the Creemore concert for Dan, and then Jay's on the 1st.
Second.
Yes, busy. Or sorry. Yeah.
What's going on the 1st of July?
Oh, and we're also going. Yes, well, the whistle stop, of
Should we do
course.
this?
Finally.
It's going to be awesome.
We'll do what we did last year. We'll bring Big Red up again with the camper hook behind it. That kind of was a good attention grabber. So
I hope we
she's
can
on the
fill
road.
Trucks.
She's
I was supposed to be there the year before, but didn't quite work out.
Yeah. I ended up having to do karaoke.
We'll get it.
Which we'll do anyways. We'll do the karaoke this Sunday. We'll get you guys involved on the live stage on July 1st, which is the Monday.
We'll be there.
Yes.
On the 1st, July 1st, Canadians Day.
Because it'd be awesome.
Canadians Day.
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome. Well, again,
we'll get Tamara off to her Mother's Day stuff, and we're going to go do the same. Kerry and I, mostly Kerry, because that's what he does best, is going to get all this information online so that we can give you kind of a little bit of a calendar of what's going on. And Tamara, Chris, if anyone wants to reach out to you, do you guys have websites or anything like that can be used, or just your social media?
Usually people get a hold of
social media for me for now.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, there you go, folks.
Just do a search for Tamara Lich and Chris Barber, and I'm sure they'll show up with CBC and CB and everything. That's the easiest way to get a hold of them.
You're going to get a buffet of information if you Google it.
That is true. Absolutely. Okay. Well, again, thank you so much for coming and being online tonight. Great. This is something that's been long overdue, but again, the courts have said, well, no, you can't do it. And it's like, okay, well, let's try and work one for each of you. And it just happened to work out. The stars aligned tonight. So thank you so much again for coming.
Thanks for having us.
Everything you guys have done and everything you're doing.
Yes.
And amazing. Thank you again so much
Thanks,
from all of us that watch the Chris and Kerry Show, that the viewers, I'm sure they're appreciative of what you do. Chris, any last words?
Thank you.
No,
thanks for having us, guys.
Keep that unity going and do whatever we can to start working together on this and get past all these issues that we're having. So
yes, excellent.
Yeah. In the words of Justin Trudeau, merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup.
Justin's a dink. Good night, everybody.